I'm going to go ahead here and let's see, put the agenda up. This, everyone should have received or all interested parties, the public notification for the meeting today from noon to 12:45. And this is the basic agenda. And I like to get started on time. I think Dr. Wade would probably be joining us in a couple of minutes. But we're going to go ahead with the welcome and do committee introductions. And then we'll, there she is. Hello, Dr. Wade. Okay, let me, okay. All right, I'm asking you to unmute. Okay, and if you would remain unmuted as part of the committee, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
So, hello, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I apologize for being late.
No, it's just 12:02. What I was doing, I just put up the notice there just to show the basic agenda. And we were just getting ready to do some introductions. Now, Celine will not be with us today. She is ill.
Okay.
And I think Aaron may be joining from another meeting, but you're here, Bentley's here, and I'm here if anybody has any questions. But at this point, we'll just go ahead and turn it over to you to start, Dr. Wade, with the welcome and committee introductions and however you'd like for us to move forward.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for making the time on this rainy day here in Louisville. The purpose of today's meeting is primarily to get us started from a communication standpoint and getting us to have a North Star in terms of what we're working on. I know that with the board being formed the way in which it has, we haven't been able to do as much business as we like. But from just from a stance of how the community views us and what we want to communicate externally, we want to be strategic in how we're moving. And that requires us to have some structure. So the purpose of today is to allow us to talk about it, talk about goals and what it is what we're responsible for, in addition to what we're not responsible for, and just get us started so that we're actually working towards some actions that are tangible for us as we continue to meet each month. But in between the meetings, I feel like we should be able to make some progress in terms of communicating externally as well as internally in terms of what the board is doing. So about a week or so, I sent out what I call a homework sheet to just ask some questions that can get us aligned strategically. You know, when we formed as a committee, we didn't have very much focus. And I know that Ms. Rita and Bentley had several conversations, and it actually was a very good starting point, but I wanted to take a step back and not assume too much and understand that we have different people from different backgrounds. So to be fair to all the board members, as well as just be strategic with how we move forward, the homework worksheet was just an opportunity to get everyone acclimated and hopefully allow us to make some good progress in the next coming weeks in terms of what we're working on. So the purpose of today is just getting aligned on that and walk away with some touch points and some benchmarks in terms of what we plan to accomplish. Are there any additions you'd like to add, Bentley, or anyone else from the committee? Ms. Rita?
What I'd like, if you would just take a few minutes to do an introduction of yourself, Dr. Wade, and then Bentley, as you know, this is a volunteer committee, and just so people will understand, we have a couple of members not with us today, but if we could go ahead with those introductions, I think it would be helpful for the guests online. Thank you. Cool.
My name is Dr. Dawn Wade. I am the Chief Strategy Officer and a Managing Partner for Nimbus. And Nimbus is a Louisville-based firm. We are, our competencies are strategic communications and marketing. We have a heavy focus in multicultural marketing as well. We've been in the Louisville market since 2002, so we're about 20 years old. I am based out of Louisville. I'm not from Louisville, but I've been here since 2015 full-time. And we work with various corporations inside of Louisville as well as many outside of Louisville, working on communications, marketing, multicultural support. We do a good amount of D&I efforts for different corporations as well. I'll pass it over to Bentley.
Thank you. I actually didn't realize that we have been in Louisville the same amount of time either. But I actually moved to Louisville in 2016 from Brooklyn, New York. I am a digital marketing professional. I'm the director of digital marketing for Long John Silver's and have been working in the field for the past 15 years. I'm a volunteer 100% on this. I'm not on any of the other boards or committees. And I'm just here to lend my expertise to help communicate some stuff.
Excellent. And then we have Celine Mutier Maria, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. She is a policy strategist with the Louisville Urban League. She's a volunteer. Celine is out ill today, so she's not with us. And then Aaron Jordan, I don't know if Aaron got caught in another meeting. Aaron has a communications and marketing background, and he's a volunteer as well. And I am here, Rita Phillips, as an administrative support to the board and to the committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rita. I know that we only have 45 minutes, so the biggest thing today was to make sure that we had feedback from everyone, to give everyone a chance to provide feedback and just to get us started on next steps. I know because the board is not fully formed yet, that we have some barriers or some things that can prohibit some of the work, but I think having Bentley and myself and the other two volunteers, I feel like there's still a lot that we can do in the meantime. Considering we're not trying to set policy or anything of that nature. We're more so just trying to make sure that we're communicating to the public effectively. So that was the purpose of the homework sheet that I sent out. Ms. Rita, would you mind driving and sharing that for me?
You want me to pull it up, or do you want to?
Would you
I
mind
have
pulling
shared
it up,
screen.
please?
Okay, not at all.
I'm not good at sharing, and I always have. a
Okay,
ton
no
of stuff.
problem, no problem. Let me find it here.
But the
Okay.
purpose of that was to allow us to get all of our feedback in. And unfortunately, everyone didn't submit feedback, but I think that we'll have some general consensus. I read through the input, and I think that for the most part, we're aligned. I think we could prioritize a few things within it, but I just wanted it to be an establishing standpoint so that we're kind of all speaking the same language in terms of what our goal from a communications committee is and what we're tasked
Hang
to
on
do.
a second. Okay. Let me pull it up.
Now, I thought that was a good exercise, just to kind of get everybody centered. So thank you for providing that.
Oh, no problem.
I had it up earlier. Let me see. Here we go.
It's one of your tabs. It's your second tab up top.
Yeah, it won't let me minimize here. Hang on just a second, because let's see. Let me stop sharing. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, because I'm recording the meeting, it won't let me, okay, hang on just a second
I
here.
can
Let me
share
do this.
if it's an issue.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, it's telling me, it's giving me, it says you cannot minimize Zoom when you're recording this meeting. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so we can see your screen behind it. So that's why.
fine. I'll go ahead and share.
Okay,
Let me put it in present mode.
okay.
Are
Thank
you all
you.
able to see it? Okay. I'm the worst when it
There
comes
you
to
go.
sharing because I'll move on to the next slide.
Okay.
So what I've done is I pulled the questions that were in that sheet and just pulled them into a PowerPoint with the answers so that we can just work through them. And if there's anything that we disagree with or we want to talk more, I like to be able to have some concise answers to this so that we then communicate this back when we report back to the board in terms of, what we're deciding and things of that nature. So this is a starting point. So we can definitely add more to it, or take away. But, starting out, what is the role of the committee? And I didn't tag whose information came from where. I just dumped everything in and just made sure that there were no typos for the most part. But from a committee perspective, it's our jobs to gather, format, and disseminate information about WEOP, right? So it's to create channels to provide feedback. We get to listen to the community, but a lot of it is pushing information outwards of what the board is doing from that perspective. So the biggest thing is, I think where we are now is articulating the purpose of what the partnership is about. Are there any issues with what's in here?
No, I think I think we're all pretty much aligned on what that looks like. I will say I did the first one, the top one here, and coming from a marketing background, we always try to come up with you know, the 3 Ps or the 6 S's. So that's why the position, process, and progress are there. But I do want to stress how important I feel that is. Because from a position standpoint, a lot of people don't know where we're at in anything, or what the process ends up looking like. How do we go forward from here? And I think we've been good about sharing the progress that has been made, but without the first 2 pieces, there's no context around it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that we have to be careful with, our role in communicating. I know that, it is our job to be able to aggregate what's happening and facilitate getting that outwards to the public. But I think the biggest thing is being clear about what it is from that perspective. And that goes into like what we're not responsible for, right? And that's what's not within our responsibilities. It's not our job to set policy, and to make decisions that are not aligned with where the board is going, So I think that it's not our job to come out and talk about things before the board has addressed them. We're a reflection or that aspect in terms of what the board is doing. So I just want us to be very clear, like we can't create change from that perspective. We're just communicating what's happening.
Yeah, 100% aligned on that. That was one of my answers as well. The communications teams, at different organizations do have a lot of power because they have voice, and making sure that we're approaching it basically like news reporters for an internal newsletter, and just sort of taking on that sort of ethics stance, I think would benefit everybody.
Yeah, I think the one key thing that is an opportunity is for us to have a lens and a tone in how we report it, what is happening. So making sure that we're conscious of, and careful of the words that we use, and making sure that it's clear enough to be understood, and try to not push out things that aren't accurate. So I think that there's a lot of fact checking in what we have to do, but also staying humble and being able to translate even further if what we push out doesn't articulate it well enough. I think that by the community having such a range of ages, we have to be cognizant of that, and that can be articulated in the channels that we choose to utilize and things of that nature. But I think we just, we have to have a lens of servitude. I think, more than anything else, that we're here to serve the community, and it's not a place of a privilege or entitlement. So it's more so a lens that I want to make sure that we're able to have as we move forward. This question that we had on here was about short-term and long-term, what we're trying to accomplish. It was a bunch, so I put one slide for short-term. So towards the end, I think we'll talk through like next steps, like immediate next steps. But I think that everything that's in here is straightforward about optimizing our communications. I know we're pushing a lot of information out from the website, but what are our opportunities for print, social, and other channels as well? I know that there are some budget implications that we have to take into consideration with, certain outlets. But I think that another thing I think is helpful is this research and identify pain points, and that is where we do have to lend our ear to the community to make sure that we're communicating in the way that works for them. And then I think this biggest, as at the bottom, is the understanding as to what the partnership is and what it's not, and, the lens that the community has. And it's not that we can fully change hearts, but we can put forth a lens that allows you to truly understand what the intent of the partnership is. Bentley, am I leaving anything out, or Ms. Rita, is there anything that has changed from this from a short-term perspective for you?
That all adds up.
Yeah, with me as well. And I think on the last one, that was one that I contributed because in my experience to date, I think that's, the lack of understanding of what the partnership is and what it is not. I think once we get across that barrier and people feel like they're connected to the realities of what the opportunity is, I think that will take us a long way to be able to go to the next step, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree. This is the long-term answer. And I think that this was a good answer to managing a system that guides information for ease of use. I think like it is a system because you have so many different touch points, making sure that every outlet has the right information at the right time for the right audience. So I think that, that sums up long-term what we're trying to do from a communication standpoint.
Yeah, and especially from a building of a system, because who knows how many of us are going to stay on this committee, if this committee is going to stick around. At some point, there's going to need to be an operations or communications person, kind of across the board. So figuring out just a way to set up a system where when that person or when that other group comes in, they can just inherit it. Then they can get to work on other things.
Right. The next question was, what is the problem that can be addressed through communications? And I think we've talked about that throughout this conversation, is just understanding really the biggest thing is understanding what WEOP is, what's being done, how people can get involved, how it benefits the community, with its mission. So I think like that's the biggest thing. And I think by doing that, we begin to drive out that misinformation that's taking place. And hopefully it starts to ease some of the transgressions or the ill will that exist. I know that we can't 100% do that through communications, but at least when you know better, you can make a conscious decision versus being told something that may not be the truth. And I think that even exists for board members from that perspective in terms of what it is WEOP is actually able to accomplish versus what's not within our wheelhouse.
Yeah, and then also to touch on the point that you made earlier about figuring out other avenues to reach people. Like right now we're doing almost everything digitally. And like you said, there are cost implications of it, but I was actually just at the DMV yesterday and I spent, 45 minutes in there just reading the different flyers that were on the wall. And I was just like, man, it'd be great if we had one just kind of explaining WEOP here, explaining how we can get somebody involved. So figuring out other ways to do it would definitely be beneficial.
And this leads right into what you were just saying, Bentley, but the different tactics that we can do. I think, the identifying the pain points. I think that, every meeting will get someone who feels like they're not getting the information in the way in which they need it. So I think that we have to continue to be open to that, and where we can have allowances to be able to make sure we're communicating more effectively from that perspective. And I think Bentley, this was your answer about the focus groups, about how people are getting their information, what they don't know. So I think that's something that will continue to evolve. Definitely the media monitoring. I don't think any of that has been done thus far, but that would definitely be media and social monitoring. I think would be very useful.
Yeah, the challenge with that one is the cost associated.
Yep.
So while I was typing that, I was just like, I wonder if there is actually a free one out here. So you can do a free one for press and blogs. It's the social stuff where the dollar bills sort of come in.
Yeah. We I use Sprinkler a good amount on our side for social listening from that perspective. But yeah, there is a cost associated with both. Well, I'm not sure about the free one you just mentioned, but yeah. And I think this door knocker campaign that came from you, Ms. Reed, I believe.
It did. And I meant to email you all. We sort of put that on hold, but there was a lot of work. As a matter of fact, there was during transition prior to the board coming on, this was all set up. So I will email that to you and Bentley or the committee after this meeting, just so you can see. We just put it on hold. We didn't pull the trigger to get it out there, but the intent was for that to be a ground game distribution to hit everybody in this particular district in these 9 neighborhoods. Early on in the transition period, that was done for about 20,000 households in the West End. A letter was sent out by the legislators when they were first introducing this. And this was supposed to be a follow-up to that, to provide more information and to give people very specific direction how to get involved and you know where to go to make the contact. So that draft is still, you know, fresh. Maybe some adjustments can be made if this is incorporated into anything at all going forward.
Yeah, I would love to see that, because
Okay.
Understanding there is some costs associated. It makes sure that we're looking at the different channels to communicate.
Yes.
So thank you.
Mhm.
And then we start talking about the audience segmentation, who we're trying to talk to. And I think that it was broken down by age group. And then there's another slide that comes after in terms of the best channel. But I think to sum it all up, our first audience are the residents of the West End, you know, from that perspective. And then it goes to those who, you know, are advocates or allies, things, you know, are pushing for change within the West End. So I think that this is good. I think that we can definitely be able to differentiate, understanding that everybody consumes information differently. I'm not sure how much we'll be able to get into the personality of them from that perspective, but I think that's where we'll just have to keep our ears, you know, our listening ears on, in terms of if there's a channel that we're missing that we need to incorporate. But, you know, unfortunately, that's one of those things where the squeaky wheel will get the attention. So just making sure that we don't intentionally leave anyone out. And if it comes to our attention, just trying to address it in the way that, you know, the best way that we can.
And Dr. Wig, some of the feedback on this screen, like from the residents, from that breakdown, donors, collaborators, media, this is a lot of what we talked about and planned in terms of what might be needed from a communication standpoint during transition. So I was sharing some of that feedback that based on the earlier conversations we had, because it just morphed right into what we were talking about here.
Yeah, I think that this is good, how you break it out. And then on the next one, we talk about how we communicate to them. So
yes,
how it has the seniors, you know, the things like the mailers, the flyers, the church circulars, things like that, I think are very effective. You know, we recognize that we may not be able to reach them digitally from once over a certain age. So I think that this is very helpful.
Great.
I giggled at the nightclubs one, something I was watching about how, you know, you can't use it. I think, Ms. Rita, that'll be your channel, right?
I don't know about that. I know when we were talking about that, I was like, okay, so who still goes to nightclubs, okay? But a lot of them do.
Yeah, it really is.
Now you have to tell me where they are in Louisville though, but you know.
But I think that this is good. I think we could add some educational outlets as well for the millennials and the Gen X that also could be effective. But Bentley, this goes into what you were saying, like when you were at DMV and they had all the posters that talk about it. But you know, a coffee shop, a lot of the places that people there will be good foot traffic will be additional channels.
Now, Rita will definitely need to show me the nightclubs, but outside of that, I agree wholeheartedly.
No, we'll leave that to Lisa Wilson, who's listening in on the call.
I think that the robocall messaging is good, but as we know, that comes with the cost as well.
Yes.
You know, so
yes.
I think that's a little bit of where we have to be cognizant, because we don't have the full board yet. But I think that we can put some things in place in terms of recommendations so that when the full board is in place, we wouldn't have to start from ground zero in terms of adding additional outlets or channels.
And then, there's a potential downside on the robocalling, given the reputation that robocalls have, acquired these days. Because a lot of times people don't even, they hang right up. I mean, I'm an example of that. Now the phone will say spam likely, or if people have landlines, people are not trying to listen to anything they think is a robocall. So that might be something that would need to be talked about.
That is true. My father does the same thing. Like if someone calls him, he's like, do I have AT&T? And I'm like, no, it's a scam. You don't even have AT&T. So that is true. Now here's another one that are assets. I think that, when it comes to communicating, there are a bunch of different assets, but I think that we can do it from a very high level, and we can also become more granular, and I think that as we build things out and get more information and have more progress, that's where those infographics can come into play very well. I think, making sure that we're synced up on the website so that as changes are coming through, we are effectively, communicating that. The website itself will likely be the hub of most things. So just making sure that everything kind of stems from there, I think is a good asset as well. Anything else here, Bentley or Ms. Rita?
I think that's good.
Yeah, the four down at the bottom were the ones that I threw in the hat, and that was just so we could reformat for whatever mediums we end up going through. Yeah.
Okay. And then success, right? And I think that I could have put this into a short-term as well as a long-term success, but increased engagement. And I think something that's not in here is a change in sentiment. And I know that a change in sentiment isn't just about communicating, it's about the progress that the board is making. But I think that there can be a change in sentiment just for clarifying the purpose of what the board is and what it is our goal is to accomplish with the partnership. And I know that there is a lot of misrepresentation, and I often will say sometimes, I say this a lot, but only light can drive out darkness. But I think that in this case, because of the source of some of the information, that we have to just be silent. You can't defend everything about what has been said. We just have to own our truth in terms of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and allow that to just be the facts, and not have to continue to give new stories every time.
All right. And I think a point that I was trying to make here on the regarding the advisory council. The advisory council, I think, is going to be a very critical, positive support committee for the board. I know that the governor he's doing the initial appointments, and then after that, the board will appoint their own board members in rotation. But the fact that these 9 members are also from the community. So you have these 9 that now they don't have voting privileges on the board, but they're going to be very critical to the board, because they're going to be voices that will help to represent their particular community. So as we begin to, or as this board begins to really launch with the full board hopefully being in place by the March board meeting, it's going to be important to incorporate this advisory council and to help bring them along as well. I just can't stress enough how vital I think the advisory council as a subcommittee, because legislatively, they are an official subcommittee to the West End Opportunity Partnership. And then having said that, just a couple of things in mind. If you notice, in a lot of my communication, and then Dr. Wade and Bentley, this may be something that once the full board is in place that deals with branding, that's another whole area, because in the very beginning of transition, the use of WEOP, the acronym WEOP, was kind of like kicked to the curb in a effort to have a more positive, to verbalize it more positive by using the partnership. So that's something that they'll have to think about. I don't know if that comes from the communication committee or if that's decided once the full board is in place, but am I on point to think that's a branding issue, and they'll talk about how they want to relate to it? Because saying WEOP is a whole lot shorter and easier than saying West End Opportunity Partnership. And then I just have gotten in the habit of just using the partnership. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as far as like the positive words that are associated with both opportunity and partnership, there's a lot of value in there. I was discussing this with a graphic designer friend of mine. He does the branding for like Feast and Royals, and he was particularly elated with the idea of WEOP as a short term sort of an acronym. And he ended up swaying me a little bit more, because originally I was in the same boat where I'm like, no, we need opportunity, we need partnership, but it is a mouthful. And even our website is West End Partners.
Yes.
So like, yeah, that needs to change if we were going to go along that route. But I think it's a conversation to be had. I think there's positive pros and cons each way. The t-shirts, if we go with WEOP, are going to be a lot cooler.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Oh, Dr. Wade, she put herself on after. Okay, there you go.
My dog was barking, so I muted.
Okay.
I do think I can agree, look at it both ways, but I think that once we have some sentiment change, there can be a positive connotation to it. I think that it's just going to take some time. So this was what I threw in at the end in terms of next steps. Like, I don't want us to just meet to meet, but I felt like today this provided us an opportunity to not be subjective, to just look at it in terms of the job that needs to be done, and I think that we can put that very clearly, as a report out. I want to be able to communicate that. But I think, Ms. Reedy, you may have some more tacit knowledge about the limitations of what we can do before full board has been established. So can you talk to that a little bit in terms of how much we can do or what we're restricted from doing? I think that there are some implications that we should be very clear about in terms of what we're able to do.
Well, I think as long as we are not making decisions, of course, major decisions would come from this committee to the full board. As long as we are just building the foundation for communication, like I was going to have Bentley he shared with me earlier some of the changes of improvements that he's doing to the website. Those kinds of things to improve communication, we're good. If we're going to do anything that's going to cause expenditure of funds, we can do that, but we take it to the board for them to approve. And so it may be that some of the board members might want to hold off on those kind of approvals because the intent is to have the board fully constituted next month. So we're just talking about, 4 or 5 weeks out. But as long as we're doing basic operational things that don't require major expenditures that would have to be approved by the board, we're not setting policy, those kind of things, we're good to move forward. This piece regarding communications has been talked about individually by a number of board members for a long time, to at least as it relates to the media doing stories on the organization, to try to pull something together. I know, Bentley, you and I talked about the whole press release piece that would be nice to have in place. So when the reporters come, we have some basic information, factual information that we have ready, like maybe some canned press releases, and then they can kind of be massaged. Those kinds of things, as long as the board is in support, we're okay to do. And I don't think we'll have too much to worry about, Dr. Wade, since we're within that 30 to 45 day window with the board being fully constituted.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, but I also don't want to over commit in terms of Bentley or in terms of his services. I know that he's volunteering, and I know that we've talked about like redesigning the website. So that comes with like design and different costs, from a labor perspective. So, and I don't know, I'm not familiar with all the conversations, but do we feel like that's something that we can still remain within the committee and do, or do we need to look at securing a vendor to do that? We talked about, redoing the logo and things like that. Those are things that I feel like do need, board buy-in on that. But before starting that process, I just want to make sure that we are aligned in terms of what we'll do in the short term and, what will happen longer term, because I think, from a website,
Sure.
Adjustments, that's easy to do. But if we're talking about a redesign, that takes more time and labor.
Yeah.
Julie,
So
will you speak to that in terms of what you've been doing and what you suggest that we can do going forward?
yeah. So the website, and actually, Rita, would you mind pulling that up? Or I guess Don, Dr. Wade, if you wouldn't mind pulling it up. I can just kind of like walk you through what's going on with it. What I'm doing right now is not redesign, because I do not have the bandwidth to do an entire website redesign myself.
Right.
So what I have done is tried to make it more easy to understand and navigate. So originally, the updates and calendar were all under the about section, and the updates was called news. And that's really where the majority of like our documentation actually exists.
Yeah.
So if you click on updates, I've reformatted all of these and then also put them into categories. So you can see financial report, meeting notice, meeting recording, and then also downloaded and then uploaded all of our meeting recordings to YouTube and then put them in as embedded files. Okay. So if you click into one of the meeting recordings, you can actually just play it right on the website.
Okay.
And then, I don't know what that still image is from, but then also in the update section, the meeting minutes are also hosted right next to the videos. And then the calendar update is for the West End Opportunity Partnership calendar. So this is where we can update all of our meetings. So everything going forward can be right there. Anybody who wants to jump into one of the meetings can do it because the Zoom link is going to be there, all the information associated with it. And I'm also going to, after we have this recording up, put a link in this. So trying to hit all the places where somebody might try to go to get information and then go from there. The resources tab is what I'm going to be focusing on next. Right now, there's not a lot in here, but looking to host all of the press releases that exist, all the news, all the videos in sort of one feed. So if somebody's just like, I want to watch all of the meeting recordings, they don't have to scrub through the updates in order to find it. So really turn it into a resource sort of a thing. And especially for the press, anybody who's looking to research or write about us should be able to click in this one tab and then figure out absolutely everything. So that's what I've been working on. As far as like a whole website redesign, my recommendation would be to wait until the board is in place to really see what's going on with that. A lot of these things I can knock out during like my lunch break, or if I'm, bored at 7 o'clock at night. But what I think that this committee should really focus on are creating those stories, those pitches that I was talking, or that we were talking about earlier. And then also working on language for press release. I think that's something that we can knock out over email as well as a few of these meetings, and actually have something, a productive to share with the rest of the groups.
So we said the press kit, what was the other one you just said? I forgot that quick.
The stories, so like the 30-second pitch, like how can we explain what we're doing in 30 seconds, a 3-minute one, and then like a 2-page essay. So basically everything except for the infographics, which can come much later.
What format are you suggesting with the 30-second pitches?
So the format for it is originally just a story, so just us talking. And the reason for it is that if we needed to put out there a tweet or very quickly explain what we're trying to do, this is how we would do it. I think I might have mentioned it during one of the other public meetings, but the way I got involved with this is somebody just told me that I could get my house fixed for free. So I showed up to one of the meetings and I'm like, oh, that's not what this is about at all. So that's what's kind of going around about it. But like, what is it that, you know, the West End Opportunity Partnership is looking to do? You know, and there's different scales that you can get into that, but you mentioned it before where you're like, you can get really detailed with it. But figuring out that short story, that mildly longer story, and then, you know, just a novel is a good place to start for creating any of these materials.
Okay, I think that one thing that we can also do is understand, like, I think that is some short-term stuff. I'll just say continue website updates. I think some midterm, and I'm saying midterm because we're hoping to have the full board within the next few weeks, right? So I think that we can probably put together what we would need to, like, from an agency perspective to support, like, if we want to do a redesign, if we feel like that's needed for the website. I know that there was some conversation about a logo rebranding. I don't think that those are things that prohibit us from communicating, but those are longer term things that I think that the whole board should be deciding, you know. But I think we can kind of have a list of items that need to be accomplished once the full board is, you know, situated.
Yeah, that's super valuable.
Yeah, once the full board. And then if people are inquiring, we can say it is on the list, but until we have a full board, we don't feel like we should make those decisions.
Right.
I think that I know we talked about some print and some other options of expenses in terms of like flyers and things like that. Ms. Rita, have you ever used anyone local here to produce and distribute those, if we incorporate that in the short term?
In the transition, Dr. Wade, we got right to that launch point. But we put it on hold when the governor, started announcing the board. So we haven't used anyone locally. We've had some places recommended. And I can pull, when I send that information over to you all, I can share that with you.
Yeah, because I would love to kind of like have some quotes that we can then take to the board from a recommendation standpoint to say, even if it's just communicating meetings and things of that nature, to say, this is what we recommend on a regular cadence so that we're utilizing our channels appropriately. I think we could also do, some newsletter type work. And I know I've discussed with you my issues with my agency doing it. I don't want there to be a conflict of interest. So I would rather us secure some quotes to do that. And I can help guide that process, but I want to be very transparent about, who we go with and our reasons for securing them.
Okay.
I know that we're at time.
I was going to say, as chair, of course, on the public meetings, it's your choice as to whether you want to take any questions or not. the setup is committee, the meeting is being conducted by the committee, and guests, their opportunity is to listen in. So that will be your call.
I'm open. I don't have an issue with it. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. So
Okay.
I'm open.
Because there's there's 8 of us on the call. If anybody has a question, you can just raise your hand, because I will have to ask you to unmute if you have a question or want to contribute any comments at all. I mean, or you can put it in the chat. So in the I don't see anything in the chat yet. And so Dr. Wade, then, there's one from Mike Nago. Mike
Mike.
says he's super happy with what I see. Thank you, Michael. Anyone else?
Well, just to put a button on everything here. This is when's the next meeting?
Yes.
Oh, that helps, huh?
Let's look at some calendars.
Yeah. I think.
And Mike is thanking everybody for the contributions. You're welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining in. And I like the fact, Dr. Wade, you say you don't want to meet just to be meeting. And so we want to be very thoughtful about the next meeting and what we would cover in those. So rather than putting anybody on the spot right now, do we want to look at priorities, next steps, and then kind of determine from there?
Yeah, I'd like to definitely be able to, right now, we're not meeting this month, right? From a board perspective, but maybe.
The next board meeting will be at the end of March.
Right.
We're teetering around that. Originally, the March 26th date, but we've got some conflict in time. So we're looking anywhere from the 20, that Friday up to that Monday or Tuesday. Hopefully the Y will be back with me today so we can finalize that and get that information out to everyone.
Okay. What I'd like to accomplish prior to the next meeting is an update in terms of, the few things that we have here, listed, as well as this list of things we want to do. And I can start an outline for that, but I'd like to at least be able to report out on it. So maybe if we can meet again in the next, before the March board meeting, to be able to have some progress.
Okay.
And Bentley, I think it would kind of be helpful as well in terms of the website updates. We can probably start like a Google Doc of updates that we want to be able to provide to the board, of just things that you're doing to help be more, for the site to be more transparent. Because we will be talking in front of the community. So that will be our opportunity to say, hey, all of the previous recordings are uploaded, all the, the meetings and things like that. So if it's something that we can just put together to have for distribution as well.
Yep, that's no problem. And then I can share over some samples of some of the stories and pitches that I've worked on previously.
Okay.
So we can use that as a starting point.
Okay.
And I could also put together an outline of what might need to be in a press kit, and then we can kind of work from there.
Yeah, I'll work with you on that too.
And then regarding the next meeting, since we're not looking at a board meeting until the end of March, then I can coordinate with everybody and get out notification in ample time. We do know we're going to meet before the next board meeting, probably maybe around mid-March, but that'll be forthcoming. In the chat, Kathleen Parks is with us, and let's see here. I'm gonna click to bring you off mute. Kathleen says, am I on the committee or just a guest? So at this time, the committee members, Ms. Parks is Dr. Wade and Bentley, and a couple of committee members that are not here today, but this is a volunteer committee. So today you're joining as a guest. If you're interested in serving on the committee, just reach out and let us know, or what your interest is. And then Mike Nagel, he has a suggestion. So let's see, Mike, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go, Mike.
Okay, so I'm looking, Bentley, I like what you've done with the notice meeting or meeting notices. And I think you're on our Portland Facebook group. So traditionally, when we got the PDFs, I would have to make an image of that and upload it and all of that. So I like that this, I can just post the link to Facebook and it'll suck in all of the relevant information. And also like that it can go, somebody can link back to the source. That way, you know, if something changes, I can go back to that site. Do you, when you guys post those, is there like a press release list or somebody like, can I get a ping or an email that says, hey, we posted new stuff? Or is it like, is this going to be the way that this is going to be done in the future?
So that's a great question. It was one of the things that I was thinking of when Dr. Wade was talking about sort of that mid-level, midterm stuff. So setting up an email service is likely going to be something that we're going to need to do down the line. We do need to set up a Facebook page, and let me get my cat out of the way, in order to set off alerts for that. We do have an active Twitter and an active LinkedIn. And what I can start doing is posting links to the meeting recordings and minutes when they're posted up. That should be fine. And then I will look into if I can just set up an RSS easily, so you can subscribe to it. I guess I will update the social channels that we have on the regular now. And then I will look into some other opportunities for that.
I may be able to just set up an alert for any time this updates pages changes.
Yeah.
And then if there's something that I need to push out to the neighborhood, I can do that. But I know what I'm doing. I don't know that other people that aren't what I'm currently doing, because my term is over in July. I can't teach other people probably how to do all of that. And if we how you've got it set up makes it a lot easier. We just have to get the knowledge out that the page has been updated.
Yeah, I think I can set up an RSS, which should send alerts. Don't quote me on that yet. Let me just check out the functionality.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. And then I see that Ms. Kathleen had posted that at this time, she's a candidate for Metro Council District 1, so maybe I should remain a neutral observer, but want to continue to be informed. We will definitely keep you on that distribution list. Ms. Kathleen, so good to have you join us today. Dr. Wade, unless there's any closing comments, anything else? Anybody else have any questions or comments they'd like to share? What an excellent meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel so good about this.
I think we made some progress of just getting us, established from that perspective. Ms. Rita, would you mind distributing or pulling down that Google Slides and communicating that to the rest of the committee so that they can see the full feedback of everything?
Yes, the Google slide that you sent over for the president.
ma'am.
Okay, absolutely.
And
Yes,
then,
I'll send that, and I'll send the copy of the door hanger that I was sharing with you all. So at that point, we had during transition, there were some other volunteers. I don't know if you're familiar with C2 Strategic Communications. They help with that. So I'll put that in there as well.
okay, absolutely. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you for taking the time out, and we'll keep pushing forward.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Bentley, Dr. Wade, everybody who joined the call. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, talk soon. Have a good
Okay,
day.
have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.